Alright, just got my Airmar Through Hull Transducer. We're going to drill a hole in the bottom of the boat. We are going to fish the cable all the way up to the console, plug it into the GPS. We'll be able to start depth finding, get temperature, find some fish. We need to catch some fish. Let's get going. Alright, so I just wanted to turn it on and make sure that it was running. I got just the regular, traditional, clear view, and then I got my chart on the other one. We just got it plugged in right on the outside, just making sure everything's copacetic. If you listen, this is clicking. So that's good news. Let's get the hole saw out. We are going to put a 2-inch hole right down here and we will fish that up through. We'll run the wire. Once we got everything good there, we will seal it up, crank it tight. When you're installing a Through Hull transducer, a couple of things. One, I like to drill them from the inside if you can, because 2 reasons. One, there's not fiberglass raining down on you while you're pushing up on the drill. And 2, then you can really spy out where the best placement is in your bilge. I want to have room to take the fuel water separator off, but I also want the cable to be where I can just tie it right to the fuel line and these wires and go up through the hull with the rest of everything. So I'm probably gonna kind of aim up in that corner as much as I can. I could go on this side too, or more in the middle, but I think I'm just gonna kind of have it up there out of the way. That way the wire can go right up and out with the bilge. Also, always a good idea is to make sure you're not gonna be drilling through a chine on the bottom of the boat where you're not gonna be able to mount flush, and then you're not gonna hit your trailer, because some trailers have extra bunks, rollers, cross members in the back. On the old Sea Lark, we're free wheelie. We can pretty much put it anywhere we want, nice and smooth. All right, so the instructions say a 2-inch hole saw. So I got a 2-inch hole saw. Don't trust anything when you're drilling holes in your boat, so I just like to do a visual comparison. Sure looks right. Let's put a hole in the bottom of a perfectly good boat. Try to line it up as straight as possible, because that's got to come through and seat, and if you have a real thick hull, you don't want it to be at an angle because it's gonna be hard. You're gonna end up sanding things. Of course, I'm taking a video with a dying battery. Oh. That is a hole in a perfectly good boat. I like to know as much about my boat as I can. Can't ever really know how thick your hull is. This is about a 1/4 inch thick. It's all fiberglass. That is actually not bad at all. For a non-cord bottom of a hull, that's pretty thick. I've drilled on new Robalo, like 26 footers, and they're maybe 3/16 real thin. So the fact that this is a 1/4 inch, it's a quality boat. We're gonna do a test fit, but before you do that, it's always a good idea to clean and dry the area really well. I use a solvent because it kind of gets rid of the water and we can get nice clean surfaces. So I cleaned all the way around it. I cleaned on the inside. Feels nice and dry, and then I cleaned the bottom side too. So for the test fit, we're gonna take our wire end. I like to straighten the wire all the way out so you don't get any surprises with the tangle when you're trying to feed it through the boat. So we'll put it up in there. Okay, and then you need to put your gasket on the wire and your nut, and make sure you put the nut the way it's going to be oriented on the transducer. So then we'll pull all of our wire up. Let's try to keep all this from splashing in the water. Something about boats in Florida, they're just always wet. It rains and humidity. So. All right, so it's a good fit. Fits nice and straight. You can see on there, it says keel. So that, and the arrow, so that points towards the center of the boat. You got to do that because inside of this, the sensor is set at an angle, so that way it reads level off the bottom of your boat. It doesn't point out at an angle, so you're actually reading what's under you and not over to the side. All right, next steps. Always, if you're putting that down, face down on something, put a towel down or something soft. You don't want the surface of that getting all scratched up. Verify that the hole is nice and dry that it's going to be going through. We're going to put a bead of caulk around the bottom of it and then up onto the threads so it seals along the sides of the hole too. When you're doing this, you have to use a caulk or a sealant that is good for the above or below water line, because this is below the water line on the boat. Don't use some stuff you get from Ace Hardware. All right, so we're gonna put that on. We're gonna pull it up through, and we are going to get the nut threaded on. Focus. We're gonna get the nut threaded on there, get everything lined up, and then we'll cinch it down. All right, next you got to get this thing in here good and tight. Now this has a gasket and it's a plastic nut. Even on the ones that are a bronze nut, you still can't crank them too terribly tight. You're still relying on a gasket. So you're just going to be squishing that gasket more, and it's not necessarily going to be gaining anything. So you just need this thing good and tight and snug so it clamps it, and then all the sealant should do the work and the gasket. So I'm sure you could get some really fancy tools to do this, but I use a large channel locks to hold this so we keep it in line with the keel as it's specified. And then just grab the ears on the nut and tighten. I can see the gasket expanding. This thing is tight. Yeah, I don't want to go any more than that. I'll probably just end up cracking the nut. So that is in. The arrow is pointing at the keel as specified. And now we can run our wire. All right, here's a sign of you have the right amount of caulk on it. You see it made a nice even bead all the way around when I pulled it up in. So that means that whole face is going to be sealed. And then I put some around the gasket on the inside just to make sure that it was filled along the threads of the transducer. And then I made sure that that was on the seal good and clamped it. You don't actually need to caulk the seal. I wasn't doing it so much because I don't trust the gasket. I was doing it just to fill the void around the transducer. All right, for running the cable up to the console, because when I rigged this boat I was not a good boy and left a string through for pulling things. Mostly because I didn't know if I was gonna be pulling from the bilge or here, and I kind of thought I had most of the stuff in. So that will be my own punishment. So I ran for a metal coat hanger because it was stiff enough to kind of fish an angle under through the holes that all the wires and the fuel line, oil line go through, and up into here because I have an access, and then that's gonna put me on this side of the stringer. The stringer runs right down here, so that goes through the stringer, comes up right here. So I will pull the wire out to here by taping it to the hanger, pull it out up here, and then I took my trusty, it's always good to have these around, an extra shifter throttle cable, and I pushed it right down through along the stringer, pulled it up into the console. So I'll pull the wire up into this hole, I'll tape it to the cable, and then I'll pull it that way. There won't be any wire up here. I'm just using that as a stopgap while I'm making that corner, so I can do it in two pieces. All right, so we have the whole thing pulled up. Now it's no longer on top of the deck. Don't mind my anchor rope bucket. So it goes all the way under and through and up to the console. So I have this right now. I'm gonna feed it up through the bottom section of my console into my top where my GPSs are. I'll plug it in, get it hooked up, and then I'll just wrap all the excess transducer wire up under here and tie it out of the way. All right, so the Garmin kit comes with a little gasket, which fits on here. Keeps that waterproof, and then it comes with the nut. They keep this off of it, so when you're pulling it through, it makes this smaller, so you don't need to pull a big nut, plastic nut through the boat also, when it can be hard enough already. So you're gonna put that on like this with the threads facing out, and then it just comes on, clips to itself, and that's that. And you line up the notch there with the little plastic key inside of here. Push them together, and then this threads on. Just double checking everything's working before we clean all the caulk up and everything. Looks like we got a reading, got a temperature, 83 degrees. Feels a lot hotter than that, but this thing's made for reading water temperature. It's reading on both. Got our charts up there. This is gonna be a sweet setup. All right, we just got to clean up the excess caulk on the outside and take the sticker off. You're not supposed to, if you read that, it says not to use any solvents on the transducer, so we just do our best to wipe it off dry. And then if you have to go around the edge and use a mineral spirits or something on the boat side to do that, you can. There you have it. Our bottom paint won't mind having a little black tint to it, so I'm just going to leave that, and we've got a good seal. Transducer's in, it's mounted. We tested it here. Next time you see us, we'll be on the water. If you made it this long in the video, I want to thank you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, like. We got more adventures coming. We're always trying to do something. Check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Terra-SharkTV. We are putting kind of behind the scenes content up there. I've got, stuff that's pre-edited. I've got some behind the scenes things where it just kind of shows what we're doing at home. My wife and I and my son working on the boat. Little things that don't make it into the more edited videos. Just a personal touch, make you feel connected. It's also a great place to get in contact with me if you want to talk fossil spots, you want to talk about the river, you need a little guidance, you want to try it out yourself, or you just have questions. Thanks for watching. Peace out.